podcast that looks at all things pop culture and fandom through a lens of social science and experience. I am your host, Forward Progress. Joined with me, as always, is my lovely and talented co-host.
Howdy, howdy. I'm Nova Rose.
And we've got two excellent guests today for what I'm sure is going to be a lively conversation. Both are first-time guests on the podcast here, so very excited to have these two. So want to introduce, first and foremost, a wonderful gentleman who we got the pleasure of spending a little time reading some terrible fan fiction with recently, the one and only DoTheDaringDew. Thank you for joining us today.
And thank you for reminding me of how wonderfully I flubbed that.
It's okay, dude. We all do it at some point or another.
I went into it so semi-confident, and then I got smacked down in like the first 90 seconds. I'm like, yeah, I'm out of place.
It's all good. It was fun, nevertheless. And also joining us today at what I'm sure is an ungodly hour of the night, but nevertheless, I can always count on them for it, is the one and only SamuDash. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm just here to spread friendship and never sleep, apparently.
That is like your catchphrase, isn't it? Like, it just should be.
Yeah, I should make my catchphrase.
No,
yeah,
I'll put it on a shirt.
Gotta put it on a shirt. All right, you know what to do, fandom. Get to it. Anyway, so let's dive into our topic of conversation for today. So this is wrapping up our Pride Month here at Keeping Friendship Magic. Now, granted, every month is technically Pride Month. Let's call a spade here. But for us specifically here, we chose to take this past month and focus on some episodes kind of centered around the theme of Pride. And today we're going to really tackle the core of Pride itself. Our overall topic of conversation is kind of getting to the bottom of what does Pride mean to us? And that's a very broad question. So I'm going to try and kind of break it down here and get everybody's opinions on the subject at hand. So I guess what I want to start with asking everybody is, how has the concept of Pride, and this can be in any way you take it, whether it be the just the notion of the Pride movement or Pride festivals or anything like that, but how, for everybody here, how has Pride as a concept kind of impacted your life in some way? Do I hit it with the heavy hitters right away all the time? I think I do.
It's all good. Oh, I'm about to say, like, I wasn't aware if there was like an order.
Nope.
Like that.
Whatever jumps at you, you can dive in.
I was about to say, Sam, do you want to rock, paper, scissors for this?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you were first
kidding.
introduced, so maybe you want to start, or I don't know.
I mean, I can start if you prefer. So I still have my fair share of things with this that I'm figuring out with it, and I take an interesting bit of solace in knowing that, like, I'm never gonna know everything of the intricacies because it means so much in so many different ways to so many different people, and I think that's great. For me personally, ever since I came out as bi back in 2017, I've found that it has a very similar impact on me, the way that conventions do, in the sense of the sort of like port in a storm sort of thing. Because we get stressed, we get upset, we get angry, we get depressed, whatever negative emotion you want to fill in. But like, much like conventions, Pride Month is also something that, like, I've over the years, and as I've been more and more open about my sexual orientation, I found it as just something to get excited to just look forward to. Because I live in the Dallas area here in Texas, and for those who have or have not been here, Oak Lawn is our gay district, and there's always something going on there. Sometimes to pretty massive extents. I remember I went there twice during this last Pride Month. I went there twice. The first time was in like, I think it was like June 5th or 6th. It was absolutely swamped with people. And, you know, that like to the point where like, just looking at the crowds is insane. And you just like, how are we going to do anything?
Yeah.
There was a club I saw. There's a cute little club called Havana. Very colorful, very pretty inside. Doesn't open till midnight. The line went all the way to like the next street intersection.
Dang.
Like 5 minutes before, and it's insane. It's crazy, but like, you know, just from, you know, standing from an opposite balcony, just watching it, it's really cool. I feel like I might have gotten just slightly off topic with this.
It's okay. Go ahead. You're good.
But like, you know, it's just one of those things where like, be it June or just any other month that I've gone there, you feel a sense of calm. I feel like a sense of, for the most part, you know, safety. People who get like wherever you are in your journey, be it your sexual orientation, your gender identity, or both, you can rest assured that like there's always a very sizable number of people who get it there. And you don't have to physically be there to feel that, but damn, it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really nice. And it also is kind of like a double-edged sword. This is just like a personal gripe of mine, because like every time I go there, or like not go there, but like when Pride Month comes around, like I love it. I always try and make the most of it. But I always kind of fallen into this trap of like always wishing that like I personally had done more throughout that month, because those 30 days go by like that if you aren't careful. It's I mean, you know, that's just how any month is, but especially one where like you get such a sense of something to look forward to get excited about. And I don't know, like this last one, I felt a little better about things, but because I actually did, my birthday is June 15th, and I actually went up to Oaklawn for my birthday with some friends. It was awesome. I loved it. But, you know, like when it becomes like July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd, or even the night of June 30th, sometimes I can't help but just look back like, man, I wish I had done more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel this.
Well,
and I think I also forgot to wish you happy birthday, so happy belated birthday.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Samuel, obviously, you've got your, you know, your corner of the world's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different because like I live in Germany, and to be precise, and I have to add that, and in the deepest woods of East Bavaria, near the Czech border. And I'm not like in a small village, but in the next bigger thing, which is a small town. And yeah, it's definitely its own little world. And therefore, for me, Pride has kind of always, like, since I ever discovered the community, ever give me like a sort of direction to like live after more than what's proposed in the areas like around here. Like regarding the LGBTQIA plus community, I think I know about 5 people in this area that are also in it, and like those are people who went to school with me, all young people. It generally like seems really like underrepresented here, because like I think most people here just like brush it off as not important, and most people never like truly get to discover their true self here.
And that's always it's always that bummer that like, because I know when I was growing up, it was one of those things where like I think I always knew about my sexuality, but like it took me a while to realize what it meant. And then when I did, I think a lot of people have this, because it's the same reaction that I had when I figured out I was a brony, to be honest, where it was like, oh shit, I'm gay. Oh wait, am I the only one around here? Like, and it was the same thing when I was a brony. It's like, oh, I'm a brony. Oh wait, I don't know any other bronies around here. Then of course time passed and things changed. But
in your
Yeah,
sorry,
I,
go ahead.
I definitely get this feeling around here, especially especially in the woods. But yeah,
I mean, your
turning to,
setting definitely impacts it.
Mm-hmm.
it does. Yeah.
A lot of, and a lot of times in good ways, and a lot of times, unfortunately, in not so good ways.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in, if you live over by a place like Oaklawn or whatever, you'll feel a lot more encouraged, a lot more confident in being open with yourself and whatnot, and that's wonderful. It's just, it's upsetting and disheartening to know that there's a lot of occasions where, unfortunately, that's not the norm, and people are a little more discouraged. They, keep to themselves. They clam up, hide in a shell. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, yeah, I definitely didn't like get to really talk about this topic with any people living around here. Like, it was only the few friends that I had around here, like the 5 people I was talking about, which helped me dive more into it, and like most of the encouragement to go after that and not just hide myself in a shell I got from like internet communities. With first and foremost, also the Brony community, of course, which has an incredible amount of awesome LGBTQIA plus people in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to dive into that more, but let me ask Rose. I know, especially thanks to pandemic, we haven't gotten to do very much of outward kind of going to like pride events and things like that. But we have in the past. So let me kind of pose that question to you now about what the concept of pride is kind of meant to you personally.
Honestly, I think the big thing with it is just a place in a setting where I can just be my true self with like-minded people, and I think that's it's really comforting.
Definitely. It's because I know part of the thing that we've experienced, and it's always sad to have to talk about these things, but the bottom line is if we don't talk about them, then we don't deal with issues that we have. But it's that there are times and places where we've been out, and I know just there's a sense where you feel safer in some places and unsafe in other places.
Like, it's interesting where I was working the drive-through the other day, and like I had just a short chit chat with one of the people at the drive-through, and then they left. And my one coworker was like pointing out, like, yeah, that person had like a white supremacist flag in their in their car.
Oh
dear.
Oh boy.
And it was like kind of that cold realization that like, oh, there's some people that want me dead. So pride to me is like, it's a safe space where I can feel safe.
yeah, no, and that's a big topic, and I think it definitely, it always has been, but I think it's been of note, especially for transgender individuals. It's very much a very big topic of conversation right now, as I think we as a culture slowly move towards being more accepting. Obviously we have a lot of steps to go, and it's been a long history, and that's the thing. I think that part of the thing I think about when I think about pride in general is the notion of those who came before us and how hard they had to fight to get us to where we're at least at today. Even when it's not perfect, there was still a lot of movement that had to happen to get us here, which is sad. Like, I know today I feel differently today about being myself in public than I did when I was a teenager. And just in those, however many years it's been, has definitely made an impact on the way I've felt. And there are times, like, it's weird because, like, I've had this up and down with kind of pride festivals and things like that over the years. Because at first, when I first came out of the closet, it was like, it was weird. I felt like being gay was such a important thing to me, if that makes sense. Like, being gay was just like, I made it a big part of my personality. And then years went by and it became a thing of like, being gay is a thing about me, but it's not all of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, you know, people are very, very. I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is, but like in the sense of, you know, everyone has so many things that make them who they are. It's borderline impossible to have just one central thing define your everything in a way. Like, you know, being gay is a part of who you are every bit as much as, you know, your hair color and stuff like that. It's just, you know, it's a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know, like there was it's really it's comforting in a way to feel like you have so many other things that make you, you know, who you are. Like, it's no, like, everyone is limited to just one thing and you have to cling to that with both hands. You know, if this is making sense in one
Yeah,
sense.
no, I totally get it. There's a thing, and I think even as we grow, like, those pieces of us, like, they kind of shift around a little bit even too, because like, I don't know, like, it's I'm still the same person I was then, but at the same token, like, I've grown and I've become more at peace with things, I think. Because, you know, I grew up in a small town and I was petrified when I figured out my sexuality. Petrified to let anyone know, and coming out was really slow. I don't think I ever told my coming out story on the podcast before, did I? We might as well do it now.
Go for it.
Until now.
So
Premiere.
okay, so what I did was, granted, you know, this was however many years ago now, and there was at the time, Hot Topic started selling a small line of kind of like rainbow/pride merch, and I had just turned 18. I had gone through all of high school and just scared and, you know, unsure. And at that point, I'd come out to my family and stuff, but no one else knew. And I went, to heck with it. I'm probably never going to see these people again, for the most part. So I went to Hot Topic and I bought this shirt and I wore it to graduation practice. And the shirt said, "Let's get one thing straight. I'm not."
Yeah, I love this shirt.
And
I totally love it.
Yeah. And "I'm not" was in all rainbow.
As
That's so great.
As soon as, like, because like I had not seen this, I have not seen this shirt myself, but like as soon as you were talking about like the top text, I'm like, let's get one thing straight. The first thought that immediately popped in my head was, I can't wait to see how this landing gets stuck.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that and it was interesting. I did have somebody tell me they will never forget me for my gay shirt. I remember that.
I assume it's meant in a good way.
Yeah, for her it was a good way. But anyway, suffice to say, like, at the time, but that was one of the things too when I think back on that too, because like, if it weren't for movements, like if it weren't for there being such a thing as a pride movement and battles being fought and, you know, pride events happening and things, I don't know how that would have impacted me or my ability or comfortability in coming out and being myself. So it's definitely a big factor about things. So I know one thing I wanted to get into, and Samuel, you brought it up. So one of the things that we all on this episode share is being a part of the Brony fandom and the Brony community here. So how would you guys say that being a part of this community or even other fan communities in general, like being, you know, LGBT plus in a fan community like this, how is that like molded kind of your sense of pride within that community?
I mean, regarding my journey to find out I'm pansexual, that's definitely not really connected to the brony community, but definitely the one to finding out I'm gender fluid, because like when 2020 came around and the pandemic hit, I really dove deep into the fan. I went to all the online conventions, never slept, you know it, and that was just like when I met more and more people of the community, and it really and I saw how many amazing people in the community like are truly themselves and how happy it makes them. So I just had I always had those like thoughts about my gender identity, and it always made me feel uncomfortable and kind of scared, and so I always pushed it away. But it was only this year in spring when I really decided to pursue those thoughts and like not push them away because they make me feel uncomfortable. And that turned out to be pretty amazing, because like the coming out that I had in June as gender fluid was amazing to see all my friends' reaction and like being myself and being appreciated for it. That not only like something I mean, I was always more myself in the community, in the brony community from the beginning, but like making that step and letting everyone know that's how it is and being appreciated as a person is just it's just a wonderful feeling, and I'm glad that I did it.
And we are glad that you can be you 100%.
That's wonderful.
I know.
And so yeah, that shaped my understanding of pride deeply in the brony community, because I found friends who had a similar journey, and it's just nice to connect in a way.
That's great.
Yeah, I know. I remember the very first BronyCon I went to, which was 2014. I got interviewed by someone. I think it was some kind of like UK television was interviewing people that year. And through talking with this woman, she told me apparently I was the first gay person she had talked to. And talking about, you know, it was kind of like interesting about like, because let's face it, when the brony community first kind of became a thing, there was a lot of negative press thrown at the community. And a lot of it, let's face it, was, I gotta say, very sexist, very homophobic, some of the things that got thrown at this community. But it was an interesting thing with talking with her, because I had this realization of like, when I went to my first BronyCon and I was like, you know, there isn't really like a specific space here for anything LGBT, but I realized there didn't need to be, because the whole space of the convention itself was an accepting, opening space, and nobody was caring who I was. And that was a very freeing thing. And I know when I went to my very first meetup with our local area group, I felt on that, like, it was interesting because I went to somebody's house I had never been to, just people I had chatted with online that all were in this brony group, and I'm like, I just show up at this person's house and I'm just welcomed in with open arms. And like, you know, I remember having a slight hesitation about like before saying that I was gay, or because I think I was dealing with things with my then boyfriend at the time, and I'm just talking with people and I had that slight hesitation, and then I'm like, screw it. These people can know, like, I think I can trust them. And like instantly think nobody gave it dang, like at that table. And it's actually funny looking back at it now, because realizing of the people that sat at that table, how many different sexualities and gender identities those people have today.
Yeah.
Is your fiance?
Yeah.
When this fandom first kind of burst onto the scene, part of the thing I think was we had to fight back against this perception that we were all like, let's face it, there was some nasty stuff said about us on like things like Fox News and stuff. And, you know, like people were just thinking the brony community was a bunch of like queer pedophiles, for lack of a better words, because they said worse things than that. And I think
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, and I think there was a general sense of a pushback at the time against that ideology. But I can't tell you, over the years and the friends that I've made in this community, like, I think by having a community that was based around this concept of, you know, love and acceptance and the magic of friendship and providing a safe space, even people I think who were afraid back in 2011, 2012 to come out, I think a lot of them over time and through exposure and experience within a community that literally was like, we don't care what you, you know, saying like, hey, like, you can be you, come on out and join us. And I think, I don't know what the real numbers are now. I know Brony's study happened again recently. I don't know when their results will get published, but I'm curious now. Because I know there is a lot of LGBTQ plus people that I've met in this community, and plenty on other ends too. And I think it's one of those things too about like when you start moving away from the traditional you create a space that kind of by default is defined by the heck with gender norms. We like this show that was supposed to be for little girls apparently, even though it has awesome themes that work for everybody. But like, there's that thing about when you start throwing away all the norms that have been fed into you by society, it allows your mind to open up some, I think.
It's really two things came to my mind. First off, earlier you mentioned Fox News, and quite frankly, I've kind of come to the conclusion over these last several years, if Fox News is pissing themselves over something you're a part of, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's true. Yeah, we have a similar TV station over here that also made like brony documentaries back then. And,
documentaries.
Yeah, of course. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're interviewing people at a pony convention. Oh, it's a convention center. It's smelling sweaty in here. Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah, if people like Fox News are pulling their hair out over something you're doing, you're probably doing something right. So that's the first thing that came to my mind. The second thing is, as you mentioned, like, you know, all of the people in the fandom and whatnot, like, I've just been quietly like looking through my list of my recent Discord DMs of all these people I interact with and everything, and I'm like, that person's gay, that person's bi, that person's bi, that person's bi, that person's gay, and I'm just like, are you sure about this?
Yeah, I found so much here. Like, the great thing too is like let me kind of bring you into this here, Rose, because it was an interesting thing. So 2019 2019 TrotCon, I'm sorry. 2019 TrotCon is when I proposed at opening ceremonies, and then the week before TrotCon 2020, it was, I think, about 10 days before TrotCon 2020, which was online. But Rose had her surgery, her big surgery, the surgery. And that was, we talked with people and we chose that, hey, you know what we can do? Because at that point, she was already out, you know, everybody knew her as Rose, you know, she had been out for a while. But we revealed at TrotCon opening ceremonies that she had gotten the surgery. And it was successful and everything. And it was one of those things about, like, knowing that I could be at an event like that and publicly make a statement like that was an awesome thing to know. Because I remember closing ceremonies. Do you remember that, honey? Of 2020. when you kind of like came in half out of it and people saw you on the camera and it got flooded with well wishes for you.
Oh yeah.
And it was like such a joy because, you know, you get nervous sometimes. Like, I think it's like you can't help but be nervous inside sometimes because it's like you never know how people are going to react to things. And you think people, you know, like as much as you think people are progressive and this and that, sometimes you still have that little speck of doubt in the back of your mind that eats at you. But so far, our time in this community has been like positive, where it's like, you know, like, and considering like our relationship, let's call a spade, it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
The gay boy and the trans girl are getting married, everybody. This is our life.
Hell yeah.
And I wouldn't change it for the world. It's so crazy how life happens, you know? Like, you don't expect this stuff. And I think that's part of the thing, is knowing I have a community of people that are supportive. Because, you know, like, there was a lot of uncertain times in our relationship. Like, we were dating for, a month and a half before Rose came out. And it was always, you know, and then, you know, you get that, we had that night where she came out and had to ask the natural question to me of, will you stay? And I had to think about it, and I was like, you know what? Yes, like, I didn't fall in love with your genitals, I fell in love with you. So
I like that. I like that quote.
Yeah, I remember that sentence. It's a good one.
yeah.
That's
what is it now?
That's some
4.5 years. We've been together 4.5 years now, so.
Woo!
I know. So obviously we did something right.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely. You said like you said this was during the TrotCon 2020, like you're talking about
Online.
the July online.
Yeah, the
July
online event.
right?
Yeah.
Where was I during this? I'm sorry. I don't remember this happening, because if I was there, I would have also been, you know, cheering and applauding.
Yeah.
yeah, I remember I was
Where
there.
was I?
I'm not
Damn.
sure. Because I
Like,
announced it
this is
during
it.
opening ceremonies, but granted, let's face it, TrotCon opening/closing ceremonies are usually a blur that goes on for way too long, but we love it that way.
Yeah, and if you think about it, we're currently in closing ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. This is still TrotCon closing ceremonies, probably, right?
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
Well, fine. Since I still wasn't technically there, consider this my salute to both of you. So there you go.
Thank you.
Of course.
So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but I think the thing of like feeling accepted by the community is a big thing for us. Because it's like, I don't worry about, like, I think teenage me would have been scared to death to even record something talking about this stuff. And here I'm just like, screw it, we're recording it and putting it out there. You know?
What do you more I think about it, like, for a lot of people with this kind of stuff, what do you think is, pun somewhat intended, what do you think is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for a lot of people? In the sense of, like, the first thing that comes to my mind is that, like, be it your gender identity, your sexual orientation, whatever, it's that I feel like for a lot of people that, you know, that metaphorical pot of gold is like that feeling of just, you know, inner peace and calmness, and accepting that is a part of who you are. Like, that is, do you think like that's the ultimate prize that a lot of people want, or is there something I could be potentially missing here?
I mean, if I can say something about that, I think for me it's definitely that, because like being confident and accepting about who you are yourself, and seeing, like, being in an environment where even other people accept you how you are, it makes life so much easier and better. Like, you go out and do things with so much more confidence when you can be yourself and be confident with that.
Yeah,
Just living and doing things, going out there is so much easier, and you can do it so much better.
I think that's kind of what I struggled with for so many years, was just like for me, it was a struggle of not being like, I know, but I'm terrified what others would think if I were to, fully come out as bisexual and whatnot. For me, it was more of an internal conflict of like, I don't want to know until I know. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want, like, I was scared that it was going to be like some sort of, I don't, God forbid, I don't want to say like a fluke or anything like that, but just like, you invest so much time into something like this about like just a lot of self-reflection, and then there's that horror of like, what if I've had this all backwards? Like, what if I'm wrong? So that's more so what it was for me. It wasn't like, what are others gonna think? It's like, how can I be confident about this in my own skin if even I don't know?
I think I recently reached a new height in my transition the other week. When I broke my arm, we went to the hospital, and
oh gosh, you're gonna tell this story?
I am. And it was like, I get in the hospital, and then the receptionist, because like the way I was holding my arm is kind of like over my stomach, and then the guy just asked me like, are you are you pregnant? And I'm like, no. No, I'm not. and then I go get some X-rays done, and then the girl there was just like, "Are you sure you're not pregnant?" I'm like, "Yes, for multiple reasons."
Good response. Good response.
Yeah. I like that was the okay, so this was not that long ago. This just happened recently, and I remember when this happened, and like, I had no idea how to react in the moment, and I didn't know if it was the right thing to bring it up, because in some regards it's hilarious. But in other regards there's that thing of like, I know it's like, it's such a cliche thing, but it's like, let's face, like, it's that thing about like, don't ask a woman if she's pregnant, But then there's the other part of it. It's like, honey, people think you're pregnant. Like, is that cool? Like, and not knowing how to, and like, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to talk about that, about your feelings?
Well, I mean, of course, there's the thing of like, did they just call me fat? But then, like, the other aspect of it is, it's like, am I actually, like, I mean, I hate using this term, but, like, passing enough where even medical professionals can't...
I mean, legitimately, honey, I'm looking at your body right now. There is no such thing as passing. You are a full-fledged woman.
Yes.
I heard the very silent yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's that thing of like, you go through weird things like that where you don't really realize like how those little things matter to you until they happen, I guess.
And it's the same thing like like, I don't know, like last month, 2 months ago, I went out for a walk and was catcalled by someone. And then it was like, you have that thing of like, oh, what a creep. But then also like, wow, someone actually catcalled me, or I was attractive enough to be catcalled, and I was just like, huh. New stages in the transition.
I guess there's that thing of like, when you have kind of a gender transition of this magnitude of kind of like relearning to an extent, like, let's face it, like, we may not like this, but there is something to be said about, we are kind of judged by our outward appearance. As much as we don't like it, it happens. It's part of the world. So when you have an adjustment such as that, like with your gender, and you are now presenting as your true self, but it's not the way that you used to present, how the world looks at you becomes such a thing. So that's like that kind of thing about like, I mean, let me ask you this, hun, of like, do you feel you've had to relearn what it's like to interact with the outside world?
Oh, hell yeah. Like because it's interesting. I remember when I pretty much just came out, I started going to see my my gender therapist, and one of the first things, you know, like she was telling me about is it's like, you know, you're gonna have to make some adjustments. Like one of them is like you're going to want to like park closer to buildings. You're going to like want to like not walk alone at night, and like all of these things that are like, wow, this is scary, and this is scary, the environment that women have to deal with. That, you know, since before that, you know, I was a cis male. It was like, it was just, I never even noticed that these were things before that people had to worry about. And so, like, now, like, my way of living has changed just for the fact of, like, one, I know people want to kill me, and two, people want to prey upon me, which is just, that's hard to get used to sometimes.
Now, I think it's that thing about, like, the reality of this is it's not like it's not like it's a majority of people or anything like that, but you hear the stories, you see the news, and it's like, and that stuff sticks with you, and it becomes that kind of availability bias in your brain. And not saying that there's not an issue, because there totally is. We definitely have an issue when it comes to gender equality, and honestly, we still are developing some things as far as equality with across sexual orientation and everything as well.
Well, it's interesting because I used to live in a city, and like I would just go for walks at night. Like I loved night walks, but like when I transitioned, I'm like not doing those anymore. So it's just it's interesting thinking back on all of like the lifestyle changes that I've made. But
you didn't think about those things because you didn't have to.
Exactly. It's interesting.
And I was just gonna say, like, touching on the point earlier, like, and this is something unfortunately I struggle with every now and then, is like, it's like anytime, like, I'm not gonna give any specific examples, but like it gets really discouraging whenever you hear in the news or whatnot about like some, you know, god awful event that happened to somebody, or just, you know, a bigoted person screaming at the top of their lungs, you know, horrible things. It gets difficult to remind yourself that is a decreasing minority of people, because when it's so loud like that, you still feel like it's a majority.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When something gets thrown in your face, I mean, it's like, you know, and especially if you witness it, or and to be fair, we as people, like, our brains are, your number one brain function is to protect yourself. Like that, like your brain is constantly like trying to act in such a way to protect yourself. So because of that, some kind of unhealthy habits kind of trickle in there. And one of them is that kind of that sense of that availability bias, because we will take the negative and the things that stick out more, the outliers will a lot of times stick out in our brain more, because our brain is like, well, we can't let that happen to us. Let's remember that and focus on it. And, you know, and to an extent, like, it makes sense, because then it's like, okay, I do need to protect myself. But then there's that kind of that trying to strike that balance between protection and like living your life, you know, like just being able to be yourself. Now, I think, like, for the most part, we've managed to strike, I think, a pretty good balance in our neighborhood and everything. So there's that. But I know a lot of people out there still don't. And I'll say this to anybody who isn't, just know there are more people out there just like you who are scared just like you, and we can come together. We just got to keep going. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that brings us back to kind of the whole pride element of, like, at its core, despite what anybody might say about pride, you know, despite the fact that June becomes rainbows everywhere. And granted, do I mind it? Oh, no. I kind of enjoy it for a little bit because it's nice. It's nice to have that, like, at least, even if it's only for 1 month of the year. And granted, I don't know, like, let me ask you this, Samuel, because I've been wanting to ask this. So June is Pride Month in America. Is there an official German Pride Month?
Yeah, we adapted the June as the Pride Month over here as well.
Somebody told me Canada had August or something.
Yeah, they have August.
Yeah,
I remember talking to Kelly, I think.
Huh. Did not know that.
Yeah, no, I just learned that recently too, and just thinking about that, like, yeah, you know, sometimes I got to get myself out of that kind of like ethnocentric mindset of like, oh yeah, not the whole world does things the way we do.
Yeah, that's a very good thing to think about.
Yeah,
always realize that it's like.
Oh yeah, you have to, because it's like at the end of the day, and especially in our modern age where we have the internet, we have connectivity. What happens in America affects what happens in Canada, affects what happens in Germany, affects what happens in France, affects what happens in Japan, et cetera, down the line. Like, we all do impact each other in one way or another, whether we realize it or not. And just kind of being open to that reality of, like, I don't know, I feel like it's that thing that I say a lot of times, too, just within smaller communities of, like, life is crazy, and we all got to get through it together somehow. So we might as well, you know, do it together instead of fighting the entire time.
Yep. No, that makes plenty of sense.
So wow, I can't believe we've gone this long already. So, this time is flying by. So, couple things I did want to touch upon before we finish up here. One thing I did mention a little bit ago is one of the things I've noticed in June, and especially increasingly over the last couple of years, and I'd love to get people's opinions on it, is like June, it seems like most major corporations go rainbow, and then July 1st, the rainbows are gone. So I kind of wanted to get everybody's sense on, like, how they feel about this sense of, like, pride for pay, almost.
I mean, you were gonna first, or should I?
You can.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, of course, it's always like nice to see like some representations, to see some like islands where, you know, maybe there it can be more safe, but it's always like very discomforting to see when, especially corporations like advertise with pride during the Pride Month, and then like they can like put it away in July again, it's fine, but when they like actively work against like trans rights or LGBTQ rights in general, and they actively, like, with their employees or any business strategies they have, and they actively work against it but still advertise with pride, that I really can't stand. Otherwise, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I like 2 years ago, I think it was it 2019? I want to say it was 2019. We were in New York. What was it, like the first week of June, wasn't it? And gosh, we saw rainbows everywhere. And granted, we were also in New York City. So if we want to talk about progressive places to be during Pride Month, yeah, but like it was, I remember walking the streets and thinking to myself about how when I was a teenager, I never thought I would see this day. So there's a part of me that's like the reality of at least getting it out there, even sometimes when it's not like the best intentioned, I guess you could say, or I don't know if I want to say that, but like even if they're only doing it to make sales and profit, they're still doing it, which is still putting some amount of exposure and positivity out in the world. So, like, I'm torn because I always hate the idea of being, like, used. But, it's that kind of, like, I like the idea of having the representation out there. I just like it even more when it's genuine.
Of course. I've been like, while both you and Samu have been, answering this question, as soon as I heard this question, I was frantically searching my phone for a meme that nails this, honestly. I know, like, that's so, like, I will not take any credit for this, but, like, I remember thinking this exact same thing to myself, is like, wow, it really feels like they don't really care, and it's all just for, fluff and show and whatnot. But at the same time, like, it's amazing how we live in a day and age where, like, you can look at a meme that just makes you go, that's actually a good point. So, like I said, I was just gonna, like, zip through this real quick, but I think it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So it's supposed to be like a silly back and forth where someone's like, a company put pride in their logo. Someone's supposed to laugh at that and be like, ha ha ha, don't you know they really don't care about you? This is the part I want to draw attention to. Of course they don't. However, the fact that they can do this and not worry about losing profits in most parts of the world shows massive growth in the public's acceptance of gay people, which is much more important than what some company thinks. And I was like, whoa, did not expect to see that.
Yeah.
But, like, that is, like, sometimes they can get a little subtle and sometimes you got to look a little harder for them. But, like, things like that is really a sign of progress. Like, think about, like, in the 50s or something, would companies do that? Of course not.
Nope. Yeah, it's such, like, it's, I want it to be more genuine, but I'm happy to see that it exists, and I take it as a sign of positive change, and I just want to keep rolling with it. Gosh, we could probably talk about this all day, but I'm pretty certain we're already over time, so I'm gonna get this to wrap up. So let me kind of posit this just to everybody quick before we finish up, of any kind of final thoughts that everybody has on our topic, and just kind of the topic of pride and what it means to you, or what you think it means to the community as a whole.
No, I'm just setting it off here. It's like it's been a crazy couple of years to me, like, finding out who I am, and, like, only recently coming out as gender fluid. I still have many things I want to, like, change so I can, like, be my true self on the outside and stuff and that. And I'm only starting my life now. Like, I graduated high school last year, and will go to university, look for possible jobs and all that stuff. And it will always be interesting to see how the still, like, ever-changing world around me reacts to me being who I am, and not only, like, in the LGBTQ regards, but in general. But I just always on this path wanna stay true to myself and 100% keep that pride that made me so happy and so confident about myself, and that makes it so much easier to go out there and do the things and be myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess what I would like to say kind of calls back to something that we were talking about earlier, and pardon me if my wording is a little awkward as I formulate this, but basically, like, when we were talking about people's safety and being in certain environments where it's unfortunately less accepting, and you remember this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So something in regards to that is because, there's in the event that someone is listening to us and is in an environment like that and feels like they might be, an isolated incident, or they're like, alone, like, oh, I don't really feel like there's people out there who are who would accept me, for who I am, and so that just leads to more and more discouragement. Well, there absolutely is. They're never ever alone, and your safety is beyond important. So, in situations like that where it looks really dark and really, upsetting, I think what's most important is to please, please, please keep yourself safe and in a position where you can and will eventually meet those people that, are there for you.
Absolutely. Rose?
I think for me, like, pride is a sign that we are finally starting to heal from centuries of bigotry, and that makes me happy. There's a long way to go, and there's a lot of healing to do, but we're getting there, and that makes me happy.
Makes me think of the Hairspray song "Come So Far."
Yes.
It's such a good song.
So, I think about, and I might get sappy for a moment. It happens. I honestly think about when you came out to me, Rose. Because one of the things you told me that night was something in the time we had been together made you kind of be able to feel a little more open about yourself, because you were able to challenge kind of like everything that you had thought before and listen to the voices that you had shut down before.
Just listen to the voices inside of my head.
Well, yeah, and I remember that, and it makes me think about it now, because it was like, sometimes that's all it takes, is for something to spark in somebody to make them, to get them to, like, actually listen to themselves. And I think at its core, that's what pride is supposed to be about, is about being able to listen to yourself and not being afraid of being who you truly are at your core. And whatever sparked that in you, honey, I'm glad it did, because you're much happier now than I have ever seen you before.
Yay.
And, I'm glad there were people there for me when I needed it, and I'm glad to be there for other people when they need it. So
Yeah, definitely. Like helping other people now with a kind of new standpoint that I developed over the years is really, it's really nice.
yeah, and that's the big thing, is I feel like it just continues down the line. And, pride is a movement, Pride in America, let's face it, for all intents and purposes, the modern day pride movement started when somebody threw a brick at a bar. And it was a statement. It was a movement about, we are not going to just be afraid all the time, and we have the right to be who we are. And it is gone, we're here, 50, 60 years later, and we're at a point where we can be a little more open, and we are making strides. And the greatest thing is to see those of us who are there now helping out those who need it. And I mean, that really is what I call keeping friendship magic.
Mm-hmm. It's not a moment, it's a movement.
Exactly.
If you want the Hamilton quote, take it.
Thank you, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Anyway. All right, so we're going to wrap up here. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank our special guests for joining us today. You guys have been such a delight to talk with. SamuDash, thank you for staying up to whatever ungodly hour it is in Germany right now to do this with us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Germany, but my sleep schedule isn't, so it's fine. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how can people find you if they want to?
Oh yeah, they can mainly find me on Twitter. It's at SamuDash02, because at SamuDash is still taken from an account that wasn't active for 10 years. But yeah, it's at SamuDash02. I make silly tweets, the silly tweets about friendship, about pony conventions, and I will post some art in the near future when I get back to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Dewey, Do the Daring Do. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Dewey is just fine. But yes, thank you very much for having me. This was something I was really looking forward to. So
awesome. I'm glad we finally got to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
What do you got going on? Where can people find you?
I stay pretty active on my Twitter. I'm still slowly but surely figuring out Instagram, which is a whole new beast. But it's primarily Twitter, Discord, and my YouTube channel. I actually also, while I work on some new music, I also offer music lessons. So, Twitter and Discord are probably the best ways to get a hold of me for any that are interested in that.
Awesome. And Miss Nova Rose, thank you as always for joining me.
As always.
Despite the elbow.
I'm living.
And where can people find you?
People can go find me at or on Twitter at Nova Roselia. On there, I will occasionally post art, silly memes, and I'll also post when I am streaming, which I stream at or over on Twitter.
Or Twitch.
Twitch, that's what I meant.
They sound too similar.
I know.
Twitcher.
At,
or Twit.
Twitch.tv/Nova Roselia. So that's easy to remember. Yeah, I mostly play Genshin, and I play pretty much every Monday and Wednesday.
Yay.
At around 10:30 p.m. Eastern.
Be up late. Or just live anywhere other than here.
Yeah.
Live anywhere other than the East Coast and you're good.
West Coasters, your time has come.
Yes. And as always, I'm your host, Forward Progress. If you like what you hear, you can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/c/keepingfriendshipmagic. You can find me on Twitter at keepfriendmagic. And if you really like what you hear, you can always become a patron at patreon.com/KFM. Every dollar that gets contributed goes right back into making this project keep going further. So with that being said, thank you all once again for joining us. And remember to keep friendship magic out there. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to our patrons, SamuDash, Jason Kuzmak, Fatman Dan, NeverendingNerd, Riftwing Designs, and Frenchie McHugh. Without your support, this project wouldn't be possible.